He's doing quite well, but he hasn't had a rehearsal yet, so that was his first time.
Out of time.
All right, good evening, everybody. I hope you've all had something to eat and drink. And welcome to the Friends of the Academy Events Night. Tonight we are celebrating Havana Nights with the brilliant Rodriguez brothers and the WA Jazz students and ensemble. Would you please make them welcome? That's a brilliant performance. Tonight we're especially lucky because I'm going to be interviewing 3 of the students that you saw tonight, 3 of the performers. As soon as they get up on stage, they don't look like students somehow, they just look fully formed. Okay, so on my right there we've got Mia, Reese in the middle, and Jean immediately on my right. So welcome here, and thank you very much for giving up your time when you could have been just having a ball down there. All right, just a few questions then. This one's for everybody because we really like to know where our students come from, and some of them come a long way. So where do you all come from? Mia?
I don't come from very far. I live in Mount Lawley. I always have. I think I always will, because I'm going to live with my parents forever.
They've been warned.
I'm a little bit further, you know. It's a 15-minute drive for me. I live in Rivervale, south of the river. Oh, okay. Lots of north of the river people here. I'm sorry.
And Jean?
I actually came from a farm in South Australia. There's 20,000 people in the town. So, Port Lincoln, if anyone knows it.
Yeah, I do know Port Lincoln.
They did a tuna tossing, yes.
So you've been living over here since you've been at WAAPA then?
Yes,
Okay.
about 5 years.
Golly. Okay. Anyway, well, welcome to Jean, and for the other of you who did that huge journey from Mount Lawley. All right, so let's start off with you, Reese. Now, I've got to read this because I got this quote from a deeply important research source. Okay, this is a definition. Jazz singing is an instrumental approach to the voice where the singer can match the instruments in their approach to the lyrics. Now, does that mean that jazz singing is quite different from other styles?
Well, I find within jazz itself, it's quite an interesting field in that singers often try and sound like instruments, and then the instruments end up trying to sound like singers at times, which doesn't sound good either way. But I would say it's very different, but at the end of the day, it's all very similar in how we prepare for things, any form of practice we do. It's all modelled the same way. You're moving in a different style. So for jazz, it's obviously much more improvisation. Oh, that was not a nice sound.
No, it wasn't. It was a nod. Intonation is everything. Yes. So that does make sense to me. But I thought it was an interesting statement to make. I have no background in that sort of music at all, and I just wondered where it comes from, and that seems to be a useful sort of statement. Right. So, Jean, what prompted you to be a jazz singer?
Being here at WAAPA already, I definitely had no intention of coming into the jazz course that I was going to be a jazz singer. I just wanted to be a really great musician. So I went, yes, I've got to do jazz at WAAPA because that's the best place you can do it. And I just started my love from jazz from hanging out with these awesome musicians and having the awesome lecturers here around me. So, yeah, and then I just grew to love it. Yeah.
So you auditioned as a singer though?
Yes, I did.
Okay, right. Now, I was lucky enough to be able to sit in on a rehearsal the other day, which was a great privilege, and I heard a really interesting comment made by one of the lecturers to one of the students, and he said, what is the difference between a student and a professional? And there was a silence, and then he said, it's confidence. And I thought that was a really interesting remark to make. Now, how does that relate to your work, Mia?
I will try and answer this as best as I can. It's pretty hard. I think when we're here studying, we're learning and we're gaining skills to become confident performers and confident musicians, which always helps, and whether that's natural confidence or learnt confidence. I think everyone has a little bit of natural and a little bit of learnt in them. It all varies. But I think that we're learning that here, and when we go into a professional environment or something like Havana nights, everyone has to do their part and be really strong in their part. Otherwise you won't get the gig again. And you have to be super confident in what you're doing and go, okay, even if I'm not really sure if this is right or wrong, I just have to go into it full on and hope that it's going to do the best thing for the performance. Because if one person's holding back and misses a cue or something like that, it affects a heap of people.
Right, well, thinking of one of the really difficult pieces that you did, at least it seemed incredibly difficult to me, but I'm not a singer, but even I know Caravan. I mean, that's the classic, isn't it? Just an amazing piece of music. But it seems such an incredibly complicated arrangement. Am I right? I thought so.
Definitely. Some of those notes, we were looking at the sheet music going, oh my God.
It took me actually back to what your first rehearsal might have been like. Can you tell us what that was like, the very first time you actually struck that piece?
Scary,
set off on it.
Very scary. I think we started slow and we eased into it. We sat down with Vic. Is Vic here? Vic's our amazing vocal tutor.
She's indeed.
Yeah, and she stepped us through every note in that song.
Yep.
And there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
Every note. And we sped it up and kept speeding it up. And eventually got to the tempo we're at tonight.
Right. Reese?
Yeah, I found it a really good tune to start the year on, given the vocal ensemble is comprised of people from first to fourth years. So myself, I'm a fourth year. Jane's also a fourth year, Mia's a third year. And there were quite a few first years this year. So to learn this tune, we ended up separating into the women staying together and the men going off. Men sounds a bit weird, we're all very young. The boys. And I found it was great to get to know them, given there's a lack of interaction at times between the different years. So it was lovely to get to know them, learn their personalities, all their quirks and everything, whilst tackling this insanely difficult piece, which became so enjoyable. There are so many in-jokes now within that piece, where you look across and remember, oh, that rehearsal where you really didn't sing that right. So it's been beautiful to shame some people over this song.
Okay, well maybe this is when I ask you. What's your musical background? Do you come from a family of musicians, or you're one of?
No, not at all. Yeah, my parents get asked that a lot. I've got an older sister who also sings, and we started early on piano, and then that grew out of fashion, so we stopped, and then started playing saxophone at school, so I got introduced to jazz, and then came here and decided to become a singer. And it's a very windy road for me, but it's been a lovely time on the journey, I must say.
Actually, I was going to ask the two of you the same question. Jen? Oh. I said there'd be some ad-lib. Do you have a musical background? Are there lots of people in your family, or you just
Absolutely
sprang up?
not. My parents are both farmers. I do have I was going to say crazy auntie. She's amazing though, and she played a bit of guitar and sung, and she got me started. But yeah, otherwise there's not really any. Yeah.
Oh, there's something in the genes, though.
Hopefully.
Everybody needs a crazy auntie. Mia?
For me, everyone is claiming it, but no one has musical talent. My dad thinks he can sing and play the guitar. He was in a cover band. He was also on Hey Hey It's Saturday once, so he's still claiming that. But in a Kermit the Frog suit, so I'm not sure if that's where I get it from. But I started dancing and singing at a very young age. Wasn't something I really decided I wanted to do full on until I was about 13, 14. And then when I was about 15, I said, okay, I want to do jazz, and that's it. And left school and came straight here and just threw myself into it completely.
Right. So for all of you, somewhere along the line, there was something that pushed you here, wasn't there? Yeah. All right. Mia, do you have any standout models that you aspire to be like?
Yes, well, when I was first listening to jazz, I fell in love with Sarah Vaughan. I came from a musical theatre and classical background, so she also came from a classical background, so I could hear similar things in her voice and I understood it, and I just started listening to her and listening to her improvisation, and from that I was led on to a modern singer called Cecile McLaurin-Salvant. Hopefully I pronounced that right, but she is incredible and she's got a more modern take on that sound.
Right, okay. Now, Jean, you're a fourth-year student, right?
Somewhat.
So am I right in thinking then that you are studying here, rehearsing here, performing here, but also working outside?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, how do you manage that balance?
Oh, I'm going to sleep well tonight. So I actually do 3 to 4 gigs a week, either in jazz groups or actually pop groups as well. I kind of get around. And I teach a little bit as well, so I'm really lucky to be able to have those ways of making money as a musician and still being able to come here and finish off the end of my course. So, yeah.
So how much time do you have left?
Just this year, with these lovely guys. So, I don't have much at all.
You'll miss it.
I will. Please don't kick me out.
We can tie a string around your ankle. All right. I suppose the last question really that lots of people would like to know is that you have these 3 marvellous protected years at WAAPA. It's like a bubble, isn't it? I know so many people who have gone through. But there are plans for the future that you must have. What are they? Mia?
Well, I'm actually not really sure. I think as a musician, you've kind of got to see what happens and where life takes you. You can't just say, yep, I finished my degree, now I get a job. Because it doesn't really work like that, unfortunately. So just going to keep gigging and teaching and performing as much as I can, really. Get myself out there and see where it takes me. Travel a bit.
Finally leave home.
Maybe.
Through my career at WAAPA so far, I've been doing a lot of work with big bands, and I've fallen in love with the Sinatra, Martin, Bobby Darin, all those kinds of musics. And so this year's been a massive test for me in that I've started to do my own work in that area. So I've started my own. I call it a miniature big band because a big band is too expensive to run, but you still want enough people.
Middle-sized band.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little big band. I like the term miniature big band. It's got a nice ring to it. So I'd like to pursue that and eventually earn enough money to kick away the miniature and just have a big band. But you never know. We'll see.
We'll be watching.
I would actually love to probably leave Perth at some point, even though I love it here. I'll come back. I would love to write music for artists who are famous, so whether that's pop or jazz or anything. My passion is definitely composing and arranging tunes, especially vocal arrangements as well. I love harmonies and arranging, composing, I'm in.
All right. Jeremy, are we listening? Perhaps there'll be space for you. That brings us to the end of our interview. I would like, but before we say goodbye to the 3 people here, I'd just like to remind you there are these brochures on the table and also at the around the box office there. It's about the Friends of the Academy and what we do. I think most people know that our sole function is to raise money to support marvellous students like these kids. And the more money we can make, the more grants we can give, and the more help that will be for students to go on secondment. So I beg you, if you're not a member of the Friends of the Academy now, please join, because that's where a lot of our money comes from. Please encourage your friends to come and to join. You get extraordinary entertainment for very reasonable prices. So the fact that you're here, I know we've got a willing audience, but please spread the word. Take one of these with you. Thank you very much for being a lovely audience, and would you please congratulate these kids.